On September 10th, 2001, all of us who were alive at that time went to bed not realizing that we would wake up to a different world. The next day, the whole world would change. But for some, the world would change more than it did for others. That next day, as planes began to run into buildings, our first responders began to run into burning, collapsing buildings that other people were running out of. In other places, military men and women began to make themselves ready to find and eliminate those who would seek to do us future harm. As we approach the anniversary of that life-altering day in history, we wanted to do an episode that paid tribute to all of those who put their life on the line for us each day. Sitting in a high school classroom in Northern California was a star athlete named Jordan Stevenson. Through a series of events, Jordan would be one of those who would be called upon to go to Afghanistan and defend all of our freedom. While serving in Afghanistan, he was shot in the head. It left him in a coma for months, and when he woke up to a body that was paralyzed on the right side. His story of resilience and recovery and the way he is using his platform to help his fellow service members and anyone else who's going through a hard time is incredible. Thank you, Jordan, for sitting down with us, and thank you to all of those who choose to put their life on the line each day to preserve our freedoms and safety. We hope that you enjoy this interview with Jordan Stevenson.
Welcome to the Sportlight podcast for parents, coaches, and athletes. The Sportlight refers to the time in an athlete's life when they have increased ability to affect the culture around them and the increased opportunity to learn life's lessons through sports. This podcast aims to help parents and coaches capitalize on their athletes' precious time in the Sportlight. The Sportlight podcast is brought to you by Especially for Athletes program.
All right, everybody, thank you for joining us. I'm here with Jordan. Jordan, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk.
Yeah, so Jordan recently has been talking to some of our athletes in this area, my daughter being one of them, Jordan, and came home and just so inspired by you and your story. And so she actually told me, Dad, you got to get this guy who came and talked to us on your podcast. You know, she'll want to listen to it. But Jordan, I think it would be awesome just to begin today by sharing your story with people. A great story of resilience and it started out though being an athlete, right? Tell us a little bit about your athletic journey.
So I suppose being an athlete podcast, I'll start from when I was an athlete. I played sports my whole childhood growing up. I played competitive soccer from I think second grade to my freshman year of high school, and then once I got to high school, I had to choose between soccer and football. And sorry guys, football won.
That's okay here.
That's what the cool kids play football. So I was like, I want to be one of those guys. So I chose to play football. I was a captain all 4 years. I played football. And on top of that, I wrestled and I ran track and field. My freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year as a track athlete, I went to state for California. So
what was your event?
I went to state every year in our relay team.
Okay.
But individually, I was a 300 hurdler.
Okay, cool.
I'm proud to say I still hold a few records at my old high school.
Awesome. What high school was it?
Elk Grove High School in California.
Awesome. I'm a California guy too, so I grew up
right.
Southern California.
Yeah,
you were northern.
I'm a NoCal.
Okay, yeah. So
right by Sacramento.
Yep. Yeah. Awesome. And then that took you got a scholarship.
So
right?
I got a scholarship with track and field to Sacramento State University, where when I talk about it, I was so used to being the big man on campus as a high school athlete. Like, I was the fastest guy in the school. I was the captain of the football team. And I got to college and I was just bottom of the totem pole, lowly freshman. And everyone I was competing against was that guy when they were in high school. So I'm competing against all these other guys who are just as fast and good as me. And that was terrifying. Like, man, now I really have to train. I gotta focus. And
Yeah, I remember that feeling, even in baseball too. I think all of us who have played a college sport, you're used to being kind of the big man on campus, though you'd never call yourself that, I guess. But then all of a sudden you show up and you realize, like you said, oh, everyone here was that guy.
Maybe that was my flaw, is that I would have called myself the big guy on campus. So maybe I led wrongly with that as from high school to college. It was like, I'm this, you know, like, you don't know who I am. I went to state all 4 years I was in high school. What'd you do? Yeah. I had an overconfident, and I was too cocky. Mm-hmm. Rather than leading with my confidence, I was cocky, and I feel like that was detrimental to my experience as a collegiate athlete. And then I made the brilliant decision to join a fraternity when I was in college, Tau Kappa Epsilon. Sorry, boys, I got to throw you under the bus. But then my priorities went from academics and track and field to my fraternity and track and field. And my academics, unfortunately, fell way lower than they should have, and I lost my scholarship. I gave it a run in junior college, but that wasn't going to work out for me either. I wasn't always the biggest academic that I should have been or could have been, and so then it was, all right, what's next? And college isn't going to work. But I still had that athletic mindset of I wanted to do something hard, and at that point in time, you know, joining Special Forces was the hardest thing I could do otherwise. So that's what I did. I went after
Navy, right?
Oh, yeah, Navy. Yeah. So I went to SEAL training first, which everyone told me I was crazy and I wouldn't make it through SEAL training. And I was, again, that cocky young man that should have been confident, not cocky, and I didn't make it through SEAL training. I ended up getting pneumonia in my first SEAL class. Then my second SEAL class, and I made it all the way up to Hell Week that first class, and I got pneumonia. My second class, I made it all the way up to Hell Week, the first day of Hell Week, and I got what's called SIPE, swimmer-induced pulmonary edema, which is where I get too much salt water and sand in my lungs because you're wet and sandy all the time. So then they rolled me out of Hell Week again, all the way to the very beginning for the third time. I make it to Hell Week for the third time, and I completely tear my ACL. And unfortunately, they were right. I didn't make it through SEAL training, but I never quit. So that's my claim to fame. I didn't quit.
That's great, and I know from family experience and everything like that how hard that is, and the accomplishment it is even to make it to Hell Week.
Oh, it is without a doubt as hard as it looks on television.
Yeah.
Bar none.
And so then you chose...
But I had built such a reputation for myself as not quitting and working through the pneumonia, the SIPE, and all those things that my instructors, who are active duty SEALs, recommended to me that I go into explosive ordnance disposal, because after I finished that training, it would give me time to heal my knee. And if I made it through that training, then I would still be operating with them under the umbrella of Special Forces. So I was still good enough guy they wanted to keep me around. So I made it through EOD school, and 3 years later, so my 4-year contract ran up pretty quickly. And then I became a EOD tech for EOD Mobile Unit 1 stationed in San Diego.
And then your company was deployed, and you were serving in Afghanistan. Take us to that moment that really changed your life. What you'd like to share with us about that?
I'll correct you ahead of time that we didn't call it a company.
Oh.
Each branch has their own wording and how they talk about things. So for me, it was my unit. So it was my EOD Mobile Unit that I was with EOD Mobile Unit 1. And within EOD Mobile Unit 1, I was part of another subset of a team. And they attached us to the 75th Ranger Battalion, Bravo Company. And I deployed to Sharana, Afghanistan, December 2011.
Okay. I
landed boots on the ground, I think December 8th in Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. So typically a lot of deployments are 6 months to a year for other people, but since we're special operations and we're operating at such a high rate of movement, my deployment was only supposed to be 4 months.
Okay.
And as soon as we hit the ground on the 8th night, we were operating that night. I went out every single night for the first 8 days of that deployment. And it was on that 8th night that I was wounded.
Okay. And what would it look like as you went out and you're going out, you leave, you purposely go at night?
Everything we did was at night. We own the night.
Okay.
And we have all the night vision, cool guy gear, and we own that night.
Okay. And you're out, you're looking for roadside bombs? Is that what you're looking for?
Well, with the Ranger team, what we're doing is kicking doors in, and we're going after bad guys.
Okay.
So it's my job as one of the point man, if there's a booby trap or an IED, to get rid of it, and so that my team can keep moving forward.
Got it. And so it was on a night where you're going out, you're looking for bad guys, you're disabling those.
Just another night,
traps.
The same as the previous 8 nights that I had gone out, and so all of their buildings are surrounded by walls. So my job as the bomb guy, there were vehicles inside of this compound, inside the walls of this home, and they wanted me to get eyes on inside of the compound where the vehicles were, so that if one car was leaning too far to one side or the other, I know something's in there, it could be explosives. Mm-hmm. So that my guys don't walk into a booby trap, I could warn them ahead of time through my radio, hey guys, the car on, B side, looks weighted down, be careful. And then when we do go in, I would have gone straight to that vehicle and cleared it. But I'm up on top of that wall, and the last thing I remember radioing to my team, if you'll see me do this a lot, and I'm going to call it muscle memory, that's where my radio button was.
Yeah. So
I remember radioing to my team that I didn't suspect any VVIEDs, which are vehicle-borne IEDs, that I don't see anything that made me suspect that anything was going to detonate or blow up on my guys, so that we were clear to move in, and that's the last thing I remember. It was at that point in time that the guy we were looking for came out with his weapon and just started shooting bullets at us, and specifically me up on the roof. And that bullet went through the front of my helmet, through my head, and out through the back of my helmet. So all the way through my skull.
And then you don't remember...
I don't remember any of that. But and this is all this part of the story is all secondhand even to me.
Right, because you don't remember the moment.
Even though I was doing it, I don't remember any of it. But supposedly, I came back on target with my weapon and put 30 rounds back down range. And subdued the contact so that nobody else in my team was shot at or wounded that night. And I'll take that bullet 9 times or 10 times out of 10 if it protects any of the boys behind me.
Yeah, we have a saying, I've shared it with you, the G.K. Chesterton saying that when we talk about competing without contempt with our athletes, that the true soldier fights not because he hates what is in front of him, but because he loves what is behind him.
Oh yeah, ultimately when you're fighting war, like I don't want to shoot people, I don't want to get shot at, but it becomes about, the team that's with me and the boys that I've trained with and sweated with and bled with, that I'm going to do everything I can in my power to protect them. And because I feel like that and what we've gone through, I know they'll do the same thing for me. That no matter what happens to me, they're going to do everything they can to save and protect me. And I am a testament of that.
That's awesome. And it definitely has some application to being a great teammate. I think the ultimate teammates are in our military, right? Like the way you all rely on each other. What have you learned about being a great teammate from these experiences?
So when you talk about war should be terrifying, right? Like someone's trying to kill me, and in return I'm trying to kill them. So it's there's no kind way to talk about war other than we're trying to kill each other.
Yeah.
But I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't scared to go fight in war and to face death, because I knew and trusted the guys that I was with more than I trusted than I'll ever trust anybody else again, because I knew that they were going to be there for me. So that part, being a part of that kind of team where there's that level of trust and faith in one another is something that most people won't understand unless you've been a part of it. The closest thing you'll get, I would say, is being on an athletic sports team where that guy in front of you, speaking football terms, that guy in front of you sacrifices himself to make that block so you can keep going. Now I trust that guy every time I run this play, that he's going to make that block and I'm not going to get hit.
Mm-hmm.
That's the closest I think I can compare to it as far as athletics goes. But
yeah, which is really cool that you said, because you have sweat with them, bled with them, all those things.
Yeah, you name it.
You've seen these guys go through the most difficult circumstances, and they stuck with it.
And they saw me through the most difficult thing.
Yeah.
And what I talked to a lot of people about as far as that team goes is, like, even though I was wounded and I was no longer operating and on the battlefield with them, that team mindset that I was still part of the team never ended. They came to visit me when I was in the hospital, and they brought me things and gifts. Hey, we brought this for you, or they made me things from Afghanistan and sent them back to me from Afghanistan. So even though I wasn't operating anymore, I was still part of the team, and they still made me feel like I was part of the team.
Yeah, that's cool.
Which I'm forever grateful for that, because that was a lot of motivation that I needed to keep going and to keep fighting. If they were still fighting over there, then they deserved me to still keep fighting for them here.
Yeah.
That I was going to get better. And
yeah, I heard in one video that you said, it was touching to me, profound, but you said you went to Afghanistan and you were ready to die, but you weren't ready to come home injured.
Yeah.
So tell us what the injury was. Like,
when you go to war, you understand that there's a possibility of getting hurt or killed. So you develop this callus in your hand of, like, okay, I know that this could happen. I'm gonna do everything I can to mitigate those chances, but it's still always going to be there.
Yeah. And so when you were shot, you're brought back and brought to the hospital, and then tell us what the doctor told you there.
It was 2 months. I spent 2 months, or almost 2 months, in a coma from when I got shot, December 16th, 2011, and then I woke up, later that next year.
Wow.
And I had doubt. So I've been in some scary situations in my life. I've jumped out of a plane, over 300 and something times. I've been 300 feet underwater. I've accidentally swam with sharks. So I've gotten to do a lot of scary things. I've been in helicopters, and I've done things that should be scary. And the scariest thing that I've ever had happen to me is when I woke up in the hospital. Nothing's more scary than that moment. When I woke up in a dark room by myself with tubes out of my neck, out of my arms, and I remember going to sit up, and I couldn't sit up. I couldn't move my arm. Because what had happened was the bullet went through the left side of my head. The left side of your brain controls the right side of your body. So as a result of the bullet going through my brain, it completely paralyzed my right arm and my right leg. And I'm sure once the nurses noticed my heart rate meter spiking, then they came in and started talking to me, and they notified my family, who was staying at the Fisher House, which is a charity that's on every VA hospital for families to stay at.
Mm-hmm.
So they notified them, hey, Jordan woke up, we need you guys to come and talk to him and help comfort him and let him know that he's okay. And so my family came in and let me know that you were wounded, you got hurt during the war and over fighting, and I'm still so out of it. I'm still trying to grasp of what's going on, and I have tubes out of my neck, and I'm not supposed to be able. They told my family I'd never walk and I'd never speak again if I woke up. And I will never forget, I know what you're getting at, I will never forget having my neurologist come into my hospital room while I'm laying in this hospital bed, essentially paralyzed, and him telling me that, you're probably never going to walk again, and this might be what it's like for the rest of your life, and just how devastating that was in that moment for me. But still having the personality, and my family still not knowing, like, if I was going to be vegetable or what kind of personality I was going to have, if I'd still be me at all anymore. Told that doctor after he told me that I'd never walk again, that he can get the F out of my room, with some more choice words at that time.
Thanks for cleaning it up.
That were valid for that moment.
Yeah, I get it.
Right now, not as valid, so I'll give you the censored version. And telling him to leave, and at that point my family was like, all right, he's the same Jordan. So even though it was like the doctors like, oh my goodness, I can't believe he just said what he said to me. My family was like a relief for them. Like, all right, St. Jordan, he's back.
But he still has his personality.
Still the same fighter and stubborn mentality that he ever was.
And so you have this realization, though, because you can't feel your right arm, you can't feel the right side of your body.
No, as angry as I was at him, the reality was I was completely paralyzed. My right arm was and is completely paralyzed. I couldn't walk. I couldn't get up. Those were real things. That was reality. It was that I couldn't do that. But I was determined to prove him wrong and to prove them wrong. That all the things they said I wasn't going to be able to do, that I'd be able to do again. I was a Division I collegiate decathlete at Sacramento State University. Made it through Special Forces training, deployed with Special Forces with the Army Rangers, and now I'm paralyzed. Like, who are you talking to? So maybe then that cocky kid I said I wish I wasn't earlier came in handy as a benefit to me. Like, all right, now let me show you what I can do. And then it was time to really get to work. And
so tell me about the work.
The pedal to the metal.
Now, I have heard that you told them you wanted them. Hey, was it your decision to amputate?
Oh, eventually, yes. So what happened was that team that I was telling you about that was so essential to my recovery, because then I had people that would come to motivate me and encourage me to get up and go to physical therapy, to where something as little as standing up on my own became a monumental achievement for me. So a guy on my team would come and he would hold me up. He would put his arms around me, get me on my 2 feet, standing next to my bed, and he would hold me so that I could get weight on my feet again and I could try and stand up again. And I was able to stand it. So once, eventually, through his help, and
this is one of those team members.
This is one of those team members that I was still.
So they're like coming home.
They never left me. Yeah, my team was still my team.
That's cool, man.
Which was really cool. And then that team grew into my nursing staff and doctors, and my family all became my team, and they're still my team. And I just never quit.
Yeah. And so then eventually, tell me how you ended up.
I was able to stand and on my own, and then little by little I was able to walk again. So going from never being able, you're never going to walk again, to 4 months later, learning how to walk completely independent of a wheelchair and independent of anybody holding me up. I learned how to walk again. I want to say taught myself how to walk again, but I don't want to not give the
credit
to the nurses and the staff that helped me get to that point. So I learned how to walk after 4 months. The fun story is, the first time I was able to walk again, I got the nickname Superman while I was in the hospital because I stopped a bullet. I guess I didn't essentially stop it because it went through me.
Yeah.
But I survived getting shot with the bullet,
yeah.
So everyone started calling me Superman. So the hospital was having a dinner for all the patients, and I walked into the dinner playing the Superman soundtrack off my phone as I walked in.
That's awesome.
So then that cocky, confident, attitude about myself got to shine a little bit, and so I learned how to walk. And the unfortunate part was I was able to walk, but I still didn't have any stability in my ankle. So if I was on uneven surface or anything like that, I would roll or break my ankle.
Mm-hmm.
So I would rehab, learning how to walk, break my ankle, let my ankle heal, and then I'd break my ankle again. So it's just like this cycle of letting my bone heal, rehabbing, walking, breaking it again. It was just like this ugly, painful cycle.
Yeah.
And you'd think, since paralyzed, I wouldn't feel it, but man, it was painful.
Yeah.
So I got shot December 16, 2011. January 6th, 2016, I elected to get my right leg amputated below the knee so that I could walk a little better. There were vets that were friends of mine that were double amputees without any feet that got around better than me on both of my feet. And I was like, man, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I said, Doc, hey, can we cut this off so I can get a prosthetic leg? The braces I wear anyways are basically just like a prosthetic anyways. I don't have any mobility regardless in my ankle, so it's like, just give me a prosthetic. these guys are getting around better than me. How can I get faster and do more things with my kids with the state I'm in now? So I convinced them to let me cut my leg off and when I learned how to rehab walking now, I don't have to worry about my ankle breaking.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
have
awesome.
one.
That's awesome. And so you have a goal. Before we get into resiliency and how sports helped you build that
Sure.
stuff, I love the goal that you shared about what you're going to do sometime here in the near future.
So I almost set myself up for it, and I know the story you're talking about. In that I was part of a documentary called Project 22, and it highlighted that 22 veterans commit suicide every day.
Yeah.
So they were highlighting veterans that have been through traumatic things and what we're doing to recover and stay positive. And so I was at a sailing clinic in San Francisco for this filming, and I was talking about how I taught myself to ride a bike again, and I was documented saying, it would be really cool if I took a bottle of sand from the West Coast and brought it to the doctor that told me I'd never walk again. On my bicycle on the East Coast, 2,771 miles.
Uh-huh.
And if I brought him that so that he would understand how valuable it is not to take away hope from, luckily for me, I have the mentality that I do, that I was like, I'm going to show you what I can do. I could have let his diagnosis of never being able to walk in and let that be it for me. I could have quit right there. But that's fortunately for me, I'm not that guy. So I came up with the idea that I'm going to bring him this bottle of sand so that he remembers me when he's talking to a patient about what he can or can't do and what he will or won't be able to do. So I'm going to bring him this bottle of sand and I'm going to ride my bike. So I'm documented in this movie talking about how I'm going to do this thing, and then somebody saw that video and reached out to me online to find out if I did it or not.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, oh no, I have to do it.
Awesome.
So from there on, I kicked into high gear, and now I'm going to do it. And so Memorial Day of 2023, I'm starting the bike ride from Balboa Hospital in San Diego all the way to Bethesda, Maryland.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We can't wait to follow you.
Yeah,
are you gonna do something like on social media and stuff?
I'll be posting definitely once it comes around on social media. I'm currently posting online now about like the training I'm doing for it. But I guess so far people said, "Oh, you should really promote this." In a small way, I want it to be like a motivational thing for guys to look at and be like, "Wow, maybe I could do that." Mm-hmm. But in a small sense, it's a passion project for me to prove that I'm still capable of doing these big things that I want to do, and setting this example for just my kids.
Yeah.
Like, look what Dad did.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, I know that veterans and suicide is something even in our conversation before this, it's come up a couple of times. You had a buddy that...
Yeah, this past November. So part of what I did with the Ranger team, there's 2 Navy EOD techs like I am on that team. So I'm a 2-man team on this larger Ranger team. And my counterpart to that deployment shot himself this past November. And that was really when I was like, man, I really got to do something. I got to use this opportunity that I have to use my voice and create a platform so that other veterans like me, or even people just struggling through difficult situations, can see me and see, all right, he's doing this. Maybe I can do it, and just to give them some encouragement that, as grim and bleak as it looks, if you haven't tried everything, you can't say that you can't, because there's this option you haven't tried.
Yeah,
so,
and I love your comment about don't take hope away from people, and that little bottle of sand is just a reminder of the power of hope. And and you said. You were kind of born with that. I could almost picture, Jordan, the kind of athlete that you were. Like if someone said, you can't win that, you can't do that, you can't... Did that used to motivate? Like, where did you build that resiliency muscle? It's almost... We talk to our athletes a lot about how sports really helps you to build resiliency. It's almost like building a muscle, and you never know exactly when you're going to have to draw upon the strength that you've built. But do you see connections with who you are and the determination you have now and the time you spent as an athlete growing up? And
right. again, that cocky, confident kid wants to tell you that I've always been this hard and this tough, but looking back, the first year I tried out for football as a young kid, I quit. Mm-hmm. And that's when I joined competitive soccer, because my brother played soccer, so I was like, I want to go do that instead. I don't want to play football anymore. And then, of course, a couple years later, I try out for football again and then love it and stick with it. So I didn't have that inherent toughness that I brag about having. Mm-hmm. I had to learn it. And whether that was my dad telling me, you made a commitment to the team. I know it's hard, but you made a commitment to them, so now you have to live up to that commitment. That forced me to learn the toughness. Mm-hmm. Like, all right, I can handle this, and this is harder than I want it to be, but I'm tough enough to still do it. And even though it was hard, I could still do it.
Right.
And so I think that was a learned thing. Like you're saying, over the years, I learned that I can handle more than I thought I could. And
yeah, I think that's one of the most valuable things about sports. One of our 4 key principles, and especially for athletes, is resilience. And to be resilient, to build resilience. That sometimes we think, oh man, this is crushing because this kid just lost, or this kid just got cut, or this kid just got taken out of the lineup. But taking a step back and looking at life and what life does to us sometimes, it's, it is, those might be the most important experiences that we have in sports, or those times where we do quit, or where we do want to, and we have a dad say, no, you're not quitting, like you made a commitment.
Yeah, a dad or a coach.
Yeah.
No, you can handle this, and you're gonna commit to this. We're counting on you, so you need to be there. Yeah. So maybe that's what I learned from that. Like, I knew that as a youth, like, my team's counting on me. Mm-hmm. I need to be there for them. And I carried that, and that's because that's a big part of being in the military, is that team, they're counting on you. That guy is counting on me to save his life if he's wounded. Mm-hmm. That's a far stretch from, this football team as a 6th, 7th grader, that team is counting on me to the level of the military, but it's building blocks. Yeah, it wasn't as big, it wasn't as detrimental as a youth football player, mm-hmm. but it grew to be, a major block in my line of work that I chose to do.
Yeah.
But it's the same mentality that my team's counting on me back then to my team counting on me now. It's the same mentality.
Yeah. This is airing right before September 11th. And so as we look at that, that event in American history where we all went to bed on September 10th, 2001, and the world was one way, and then in one morning the whole world could change. For first responders, September 11th was way different than they thought, and for all of you who were willing to sign up and say, okay, I need to keep my homeland safe. Is there any message that you would share with people about that, and about the sacrifices families and people make to help us?
I was a freshman in high school in my English class. I remember it very, very vividly with my friends. Everything shut down. The whole school went quiet. Every classroom had it on the TV and what was happening, what was going on. And so I remember it very, very well. And it's odd to me seeing these kids that, now I feel like the old man now. I'm like, well, you guys don't know what it was like, but I do remember what it was like, and how much it changed my world, and ultimately changed my, what the rest of my life was going to look like, and how much that day would affect the rest of my life and my line of work that I would fall into and what I was going to do. One of the reasons I want to do the bike ride across the country is that I'm just going to pick a random place, like, let's say Omaha, Nebraska. For me, being a California kid and now in Utah, that seems like a pretty far away, flyover country place. But, Joe, whoever that lives there, he doesn't know, he doesn't know me from Adam. I'm just some random guy. But I fought for him. I fought for, Joe, whoever in North Carolina. I fought for him. Like, I want to ride my bike across so I could see the country I fought for, because all these people that don't know who I am, but if you're an American citizen, I fought for you. Like, I was willing to sacrifice my life for you. And every single person that has raised their hand and taken that oath to the Constitution has been willing to make that sacrifice as well. For you, for your neighbor, for your parents, for your grandparents, for your future grandkids and kids. We signed up to sacrifice our lives for you. So to that lowly veteran you see on the side of the road, at one point that man or woman was willing to give his life for you. And I bet you if they had the opportunity, they'd still do it.
Well, first of all, thank you for being willing to do that. I've seen the price that families and military personnel pay. You've paid a great price for our freedoms, and so I'm honored to be here. I just 100% just so honored to be with someone who paid such a great price for my freedom. I'm one of those Joe somebodies in Spanish Fort Utah.
Right. I fought for you, and my teammates they're fighting. They fought and are fighting for you.
Yeah, and that's
and
awesome.
We'll continue to fight for you and for your neighbors and everyone in your family and what we do here in the United States. One of the things I want to make sure that I have a message that I share is when I tell my story, I tell people, and I think this goes back to the seek to bless, not to impress.
Mm-hmm.
Is when I tell my story, I don't want you to feel sorry for me. I love my life. I love what I got to do. I love the service I was able to do. I'm grateful for the opportunity that my country gave me to fight for her and for the teammates and friends that I've made along the way. And while, yes, getting shot is handedly, without a doubt, one of the worst things that could or may ever happen to me. Knock on wood. But I could also argue in the same breath that it's one of the best things that's ever happened to me. So while it's the worst thing, it's also one of the best things that's ever happened to me. I choose not to focus on how awful it was for me, but all of the blessings and things that have come as a result of it. Now I'm able to use this platform that I have to reach out to veterans and other vets and people who are struggling, because life is hard. So I'm able to reach out to those people who are struggling and doing things and put them under my wing and, all right, let's see what we can do. Let's see how we can figure this out and what we can do. So I'm grateful for the platform that I've gotten from it. So don't feel sorry for me, and I love it, and I'm grateful for it, and I'll keep doing what I'm doing.
Well, I love that. We spoke with someone, Mason Sawyer, recently, who he actually does a podcast. It's called 1090. Lou Holtz, former Notre Dame coach, famous coach. Yeah, he said life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you respond. And the 90% response to bring joy and hope and all of the things you've talked about to other people. And man, the way you're responding, it is super inspiring to those of us who get to watch. And it's, I've never had something like this happen in my life, but we all face things, like you said.
Right. Well, I hope that nobody goes through the pain and struggle that I have, but if you can learn from my experience without having to go through it, then that's what I'm here to talk about and share with everybody.
Awesome. So one of the last things, maybe, Jordan, that I would love to just talk about is the purpose. One of the main purposes of Especially for Athletes is to really encourage our athletes to keep their eyes up, looking for people who might need them, and then to do the work when you see someone in need, to do the work to actually lift that person. I saw that principle displayed many times in your story, what you would like to do, what drove you with your partner taking his life, and when you said, okay, I need to do something, I need to help, you eyes up, you saw what needed to be done, and now you're doing this great work to help other people. But do you have any thoughts for our athletes in regard to the importance of when you see something that needs to be done, doing the work to help and lift someone?
I'm fortunate for the opportunity that I have and the platform that I've been able to build with what I've been through. As athletes, we get a special spotlight on us all the time, and I think it's important to make sure we look at the people that are behind the spotlight that are watching it on us. I think people always ask, what do you say to, what should people say to people like me? Thank you for your service doesn't seem like enough. But what people don't understand is that that's a big deal for me. Like, even just that acknowledgement of the sacrifice that me and my friends have made is a big deal to us. So the thank you for your service is enough. So when you're walking through the hallways, or your team or your school, and you see somebody and you have your eyes up and you see somebody that might be struggling, how just like a what's up, or how's it going, or just a smile, how big of a difference think of how big of a difference that thing can make, that can make for somebody. Because when you see somebody smile, you can't help but want to smile yourself. We all know that as human beings, we want to be around happy, good people. So when you can be that happy, good person for somebody that's having a bad day, that smile that you give them could change their day. It could change their life. So be that, keep your head up, and doing the work doesn't need to be a hard thing. It could be a smile, it can be a hi, it can be a shaking his hand or her hand. It doesn't have to, the term work doesn't have to be a scary thing. It doesn't have to be a hard work. It can just be work. And if you enjoy the work, then it's easy work. So keeping your eyes up and doing the work is easy work. It doesn't have to be eyes up, do the hard work. Eyes up, do the easy work. Say hello.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And for those who would like to get in contact with Jordan, we'll put your Instagram and some other contact information in our show notes. And I know from speaking with you do have a desire to share your story and to share, I guess, the journey, so that others might be able to find hope, and to have that hope that you have within you.
Yeah, don't share my struggle, learn from my struggle.
Awesome. Well, Jordan, thank you.
Thank
you so much. And thank you, everyone, for joining the Sportlight podcast. Yeah. And we appreciate your time and your service. We really, genuinely appreciate it.
I forgot about the camera guy, so you see me scratching on my face. This is my new toy. So I'm constantly running and playing with it now.
Looks good, man.
Thank you.
Looks good. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining the Sportlight podcast. Keep your eyes up. Do the work.
This has been the Sportlight podcast from Especially for Athletes, sponsored by Coca-Cola. You can learn more about Especially for Athletes by visiting the website at especiallyforathletes.org. You can also learn more about the book, The Sportlight, by Shad Martin and Dustin Smith at especiallyforathletes.org/book.